everybody, to Hold My Jacket. And it's a very foggy morning here in Glasgow. No idea what it's like up in the Highlands, Norrie. Is it as bad there?
It's grim. It's dreich.
Today, here we've
Uh,
got, it's brightening up now, the fog's burning away, but it's been a very sort of gloomy morning so far. But now we seem to be getting some blue skies, and I've got a wee glimmer of sunshine coming through the windshield.
well,
So,
hopefully it'll reach us, Gordon. By the way, I love the haircut. Really nice.
yes, yes, many people have been commenting on the new Barnet. So yeah, I've got as I was saying to you off air there, I've got a very nice Turkish barber who always does a lovely job of my hair.
Hi. You're lucky. They take ages in mine. Honestly, the micro cut it, it's like tiny, tiny bits, and I think, are you not finished yet? No. Go
Oh
on.
man, he takes great care in his work. He's pride in his work now. He wants it to be.
Yes, indeed. Although I think he's looking for an extra tip, which I haven't got. But anyway, the correspondence, Gordon. Shall we get moving?
Let's find out what people have been saying about the last programme. Yeah.
Right. Linda D says, many thanks as always, Gordon and Ori, keeping the faith as we are. Zuni says, I was born in Zambia from Edinburgh parents and support independence. Kenny Muir, there's a big long one here. I'll just get this ready. He says, as I've mentioned before, this must be my favourite pro-indie newscast duo. What really comes across is the genuine emotion and authenticity both Gordon and Norrie bring to Hod My Jacket. Indeed, the show's free-flowing, unscripted feel, together with their distinctive yet complementary presentational styles, perspectives, and emphasis, are what makes it such a compelling and convivial watch. It's like being invited as a welcome weekly guest to join two pals for a virtual coffee shop catch-up and enjoy chewing the fat on Scotland's key political issues and cultural talking points. A refreshing blend of insight, warmth, and wit. Keep up the good work, lads.
Wow. That's a wonderful review. I need to see
My
some.
face is going scarlet here,
Yes, let's not let this go to our heads this morning. Thank you.
I know.
Thank you for such a lovely review.
Yeah, thanks for that, Kenny. Well, this is about what we're talking last week in Drumnadrocket. Rocket. The village can't hold the new infrastructure. It hasn't got the infrastructure for the new developments. And Eagle Eyes 1960 says, about 10 years ago, all the primary schools, the high school, and we also got a new GP surgery with 2 practices were built, and I think the sewage works were upgraded. But due to the continuous building of private houses in Carluke, all these new builds are struggling to cope with the influx of people coming into the area. Seems like a recurrent theme, Gordon.
Yeah, we should return to that. I've been reading some other comments relating to the idea of this enormous amount of house building that's going on, which seems to sort of contradict the stories that we hear that our population is dwindling and shrinking. Doesn't seem to add up somehow.
No, it doesn't. We'll get onto that maybe today, because Alf Baird's speaking about this in Toon Hodden, and we're going to quote him a wee bit from this book later on in the show, because we're going to be looking at where Scotland is next year. It's going to be interesting, this one.
Yeah.
What phone box is Alba's conference being held this year, and isn't there many left? They'll soon have to upgrade to a men's public toilet. Somebody not an Alba fan. Did you hear that one, Gordon?
Yeah, I did. Yes, just I did. Yes, I did.
Kenneth Little says, the more I listen, the more I get what you guys are saying. There's more. There's down the bottom. There's a cracking dialogue, but I'll get to that in a minute. Rachel Taylor says, I reckon Kate Forbes will be the first SNP to take a peerage, followed rapidly by Swinney. I think the SNP don't take their seats in the House of Lords, so therefore that might not be able to happen.
I have heard stories that Stephen Flynn has intimated that he would accept a peerage, but I have a suspicion that this is actually a bit of misinformation. I think it might be malicious.
Yeah, well, Pete Wishart said he would love to be the Speaker, and he said it wouldn't bother him if he took a seat in the House of Lords. But again, I don't know if that was just like flinging about some kind of
Yeah, just a throwaway remark, I think.
This is a good one, Gordon. I'll get your view on this one. This is James Mason. I think he's kind of getting near to the mark of what we're talking about. John Swinney has been let into a little secret. The British establishment is gearing up for war. Independence will be the least of our worries. All you narrow-focused people who are keeping the faith need to look at what is really happening and what the leaders actually tell us. The interesting thing about that, Gordon, is a reply. If I can just say, give you that one. Azulino says the British state is close to disintegration and all it really knows is war to keep itself together. Thus, your comment is correct, except for you not spotting that we are therefore in a race. We can save ourselves or wait to see how many are still alive and actually Scottish in who knows how many decades to try again. But believe me, many of us are wide awake to what is going on in the world. And that includes you and I, Gordon. We're aware what's happening.
To break that down, John Swinney will be kept in the loop by Whitehall on what the British government is actually planning to do, and what it sees might be happening on the wider sort of international stage, if you like. So if it's true, I haven't found any corroboration for this story, but there's a strong suspicion, I think, amongst most of us, that there is a lot of saber rattling going on, and we are being conditioned and prepared in case we end up in some kind of hot war with Russia. Now, the question is, how likely is it that we would end up in a hot war with Russia? And I honestly don't really see it. I think all the efforts of the Western countries, except America, interestingly, have been to support Ukraine. And Ukraine is basically fighting the war on everybody else's behalf with some assistance from European countries like ourselves. So, in that respect, we are involved in a war, but we're not fighting it. We're using Ukrainians as proxies, effectively. They're keeping the Russian menace, if you like, from the door. But how long that can be sustained is not really set in stone. It's believed, and this is only believed by a lot of economists, that the Russian economy can only continue like this for about another year before it starts to collapse. Yeah, because they don't have enough money coming in, and the Ukrainians are systematically destroying all of the oil and gas refineries and processing plants across Russia, which is where they get their money. So you don't know whether this war is going to continue or not, and it's a bit premature, I think, to say that we're heading into a war and it's a race. But there is that possibility, and if it did happen, it's most likely to happen in the next 12 months. If Russia runs out of money and the war ends then all bets are off, and probably there isn't going to be a war involving anything else,
My take on this, Gordon, is we have to look at what's happening in America right now. There's high unemployment, there's homelessness going through the roof, there's corporate takeovers everywhere. People are out in the streets complaining. They're seeing all this money going to Israel and they're really upset because the people there are struggling. And at the same time, Donald Trump has stopped money going to the Ukraine. Now, this has alerted the money men, the corporate big giants, who see war as a very attractive proposition to make money, to sell weapons, and to keep the world population down,
Well, this is
if the point I'm going to make briefly here, and it ties in with what these guys are saying on the comments, with the Epstein files, if Trump doesn't toe the line and give money to the war effort, which they want, the money men want, they're going to reveal a whole load of stuff that he's not going to be able to deal with. And he'll be politically damaged. He'll be personally damaged as well, people reckon, because once this stuff comes out about, minors, we're talking young girls. And this involves Britain as well at the same time because the royal family are involved. And we're getting the Speaker in the House of Commons saying we can't talk about this. There's ways and means to do this, i.e. he's shutting it down. When people are dying, Gordon, and this thing's going on and these people are ruling us, that's when the strain becomes unbearable, and that's when you get war. That's when it comes out.
There's an interesting convergence of two things here. One is, you're right, Britain's very good at manufacturing weapons and selling them, and that is big business, particularly for England. Weapons manufacturing is probably one of England's biggest exports, because they don't really have anything else to export. But on the other hand, this business of war becoming inevitable because the money men want the weapons factories to be selling weapons to all these people they're fighting is definitely true. And because Britain really doesn't have anything else to contribute in terms of its own wealth earnings, in other words, what it sells to other countries, weapons have become big business. And there is pressure, definitely pressure, on people like Trump, who, as you say, is being threatened with information being revealed that implicates him in the abuse of underage girls, particularly in the past with Jeffrey Epstein and so on. That's actually well known that Trump was involved in that. It's just that people have forgotten about it. But the thing about the war, the whole idea of entering a war, is that it's not as certain as people think. It's definitely on the cards that there'll be more wars because there's money in it, that's for certain. But as far as Scotland is concerned, there's something else going on here that we keep forgetting, which is that the British economy is collapsing. The American economy is collapsing as well, because capitalism has run out of people and things to exploit. And now
Yes.
it's consuming itself. And this is something which actually the communists in Russia have predicted for years, that eventually communism would grind to a halt and fall apart because it would just run out of places to grow into and run out of stuff to use and things to sell. And this
Yeah.
is, if you keep going for growth, as all Western nations have tried to do, you get to a point where you can't grow anymore and your economy does collapse because there's nothing more, there's no growth left in the global economy to be taken. And we're rapidly reaching that point. And there will be some big ramifications for the West in terms of our economies. And Scotland is in a race to get out of that that coming implosion before it's too late. But I would say that's a bigger risk than the war.
The race to independence is critical now, then, because if we're going to be, we got dragged out of Europe, beyond our will, we'll be taken into war, even though we don't want to. But, and you were mentioning there, Gordon, about capitalism eating itself, and the eventual, it will eventually run out of things to exploit.
Yeah.
Well, I've got to say, up here in the Highlands, we're seeing, and all over Scotland actually, because we're now getting more correspondence. Houses are getting built, land has been taken from us, trees are being taken down, wind farms have been put up. We're losing our country like a rate of knots, and we're not doing anything about it, Gordon.
Well, you know how we were basing this program on the premise that we would look at what would happen in about a year's time. Where will we be? One of the reasons I believe that all these houses are being built is the house builders think that there is going to be a massive influx of workers into the Highlands to do something. And the something is going to be the exploitation of wind farms, tidal energy, and all of these other vast energy resources that Scotland has. So they are predicting, or they're working on the basis that there's going to be a massive influx of foreign workers from other parts of the UK and other parts of the world. These houses are not for you. They're not for local people. These are for the high-paid engineers, scientists, and others who are going to come into the Highlands to exploit these resources. But that boom will eventually fizzle, because they'll come to a point where they can't exploit anymore. Again, this is what happens with capitalism. And eventually all those people will leave and those houses will fall down because there
Well,
won't be anybody in them to look after them anymore. And
it's
that
a
is
good point,
what
Gordon.
does.
Yeah. Well, do you know this? These houses in Drumnadrochit have been built, and you're right. Nobody's buying them. The locals can't afford them. They're too
No,
expensive. And here's the thing, I got through my door last night. I've been invited. This is a mail shot to every house in the area to go to a meeting at Antala restaurant, miles down the loch,
Yeah.
for this company to justify putting a dam up in Loch Ness. And it's all worded in a carefully packaged document. And what's happening, Gordon, here is what we really fear. It's like just Loch Lomond. They're trying to get some kind of access to the water. Now, Flamingo Land is just a front. The water is the new blue gold in the world. And Loch Ness and Loch Lomond are two massive reservoirs of it, and it's a continual source. The rain keeps falling, it keeps filling, blah de blah. But it's ours. It's Scotland's water. And these charlatans are coming up here and saying we want to build a dam. Gordon, we've got enough wind farms up here, right, left, and centre. We don't need any more power. Will this affect our bills? No, it won't. And yet, they're still expecting, Gordon, last point, they're still expecting people to go there in the middle of November when it's raining and it's cold. Why didn't they put this on in the middle of summer when people were much more alert and people had much more time, daylight hours? No, they pick and choose their times. But I'll tell you what, Gordon, I'm going and I'll be saying a few things to them. I'm not scared of them.
May I ask a kind of obvious question? What's the purpose of this dam? What does it do?
It's to generate power.
Right, and
that's
more
all.
Yeah.
But Gordon, it's the same. It's the same as Flamingo Land. It's not a dam per se. It's the water. And once they can get pipes and pumps, they can sell it. It's a saleable feature.
There was an energy executive who I saw an interview with yesterday. I think he was from E.ON, one of the big six. And what he was saying was that Scotland generates so much energy that if zonal pricing were introduced by E.ON, that Scotland would have the lowest priced energy in the world, not just in Britain, in the world, because we generate so much of it. And this was coming from an energy company executive. This wasn't coming from government ministers. This was a firm who know how much is being generated, how much it costs, and how much we should be getting charged for it here. And I thought that was a very interesting admission, that we should have the lowest priced energy anywhere on the planet, and yet we have the highest.
I know.
Because we are paying for these new developments, these dams, these wind turbines, all the rest of it. That all costs billions of pounds. We're paying for it in our bills. The energy's not cheaper.
Great point.
These structures.
That's a great point, Gordon, because I think people forget this. Public money is going into these projects.
Yeah.
These guys are not paying anything. And I'll tell you another thing. Where are these people from? They're not local. They're not local.
No,
these guys aren't from here. They come in and they're like vultures scanning the area. And they think, oh, nobody stays there. Nobody cares. We'll just make a dam here. And I'll tell you this, Gordon, for the last 50, 60 years, the English have come up and built dams all over the Highlands. And nobody once had a vote. Do you know what happened instead? People were evicted and taken off their land. That's what happens when these dams go up. And there's going to be lorries, there's going to be plant, there's going to be noise, there's going to be dust, there's going to be fumes, there's going to be concrete, there's going to be disruption. The tourist season's going to be absolutely out of kilter, but they don't care. They don't care, Gordon.
Your roads are going to be damaged and destroyed by all the traffic because they're not going to repair that. They don't see that as their responsibility. That's the responsibility of government to maintain the roads. So they will just drive their bulldozers and caterpillars over this and their huge trucks. And if it gets destroyed, well, tough. That's business. So this is the way they look at it. So yeah, we're in for a lot of exploitation over the next few months. But I predict that this is the last desperate rush, the last bonanza of energy extraction that's going to happen before the economy finally explodes, because there's nothing left on these islands to exploit anymore. They will have ruined it. They will have dug it up. They will have built over it. They will have built all of this machinery and plant to make as much money as possible before something stops them. And the thing that will stop them is just running out of exploitable resources. And we're
But
rapidly approaching that.
But Gordon, here's the thing that a lot of people maybe don't know, and once they do know it, they can't stomach, because we've got 1 in 4 kids below the poverty line. That's a
Yeah.
big factor in Scotland. We've got people here who can't afford to put the heating on because, as we've just explained, heating is too expensive. We're coming into the colder months now. When you've got public money, our taxes that go into funding these things, and we've got people going hungry, well, that doesn't add up, does it? Why are you thinking that is a priority over our people? Because then you must think people don't matter to political parties anymore.
No, they don't. They never did. But
They
what
never
you have
did.
to remember is that it doesn't matter which party is in power. They will tell you the same story, that taxes are bad and they need to be reduced. But if you don't have taxes, then you don't have a society. You don't have a democracy, because the taxes are what pays for the services that keep people healthy, happy, able to work and contribute to the economy. And if they don't get that, and they don't have that support, so that when the work does dry up, they've got a way of living, they can't spend money because they don't have any money. If they don't have any money, the internal economy collapses because nobody's buying anything. And therefore, you end up with all the money going to the wealthy corporations and the rest of the economy completely depleted and people exhausted and poverty stricken. There is a balance here, and the taxation is the key. And the taxation needs to come from those huge wealthy corporations, because they're the ones who have the ability to pay it, because they have the most money, right? So you're the government, which is brave enough to say every one of these energy companies is going to be taxed at this level, and we will
Mhm.
use that money to help the people whose areas they have exploited and plundered to live in there in a bit more comfort. And that's how society should work.
Well,
Anything else, anything else is just authoritarianism and, massive exploitation.
Gordon, we're living through a time where £100 was the old £10. Inflation's gone through the roof.
Oh yeah.
We're seeing companies go to the wall up here, and we've got free ports arriving at the Cromarty Firth. And I was on the page yesterday because I'm at a Freeport meeting
Mhm.
on Sunday, and I'm speaking at it. And we're looking at Dingwall and places around here where the town centre, even the nail bars are packing up and going, can't afford it. Can't afford to put the prices up because nobody can afford it. And so you're getting these empty shells all over the place. And you've got these free ports. The Freeport company here are saying, come to Scotland for tax breaks and for facilities. Yeah, they've got facilities that are rock bottom prices because nobody's now in them. Industrial units are being emptied because of inflation. Companies can't cope. In comes these big, huge multinationals settling in here, and they've said, and this is true, Gordon, they've said
Mhm.
Scotland is an easy place for controls of workforce.
Yeah.
Controls.
Yeah.
What does that mean? That means your wages will go down, your taxes won't be there, and if you don't have taxes, as you rightly say, no circular economy. All
Yeah.
this is just a panis. It's a mixture of the biggest nightmare you could ever imagine, and it's happening in front of our faces.
And I say, I'm repeating myself here, but it's because the British government is out of ideas about how to support the economy. And so what they do is they say, well, look, Scotland is just this part in North Britain. Go and have a look at that. There's lots of resources there. Exploit them as much as you like. We'll not bother taxing you. Just go up there and pretend that you're going to create hundreds of jobs, and rip off as much as you can. We'll give you tax breaks, and that makes the British government look good. But it is a desperate act of a country which its economy is collapsing, and its entire reason for existence has become muddy. They don't know what they're doing anymore, why they're doing it. It's just a desperate struggle to survive economically. And they'll do anything. They'll exploit anything, and they'll invite any foreign company in to do that exploitation for them, simply because they don't have the equipment to do it themselves. They've sold it all. All the public sector energy infrastructure that we had has been sold off. So only private companies can deal now. And because of that, we have no control. Not
We
even the
have
government
nothing.
have any control over it.
You know, Gordon, Scotland in the past gave the world, the modern world, with our education system. We took that away. We opened our wings and flew when we got abroad, and we managed to develop and create and construct infrastructure all over the world for the good, the better good. By the way, some of it was bad as well. There was involvement with slavery and all that kind of stuff, but that was within a union at that point. That's
Yeah,
within a union. That's you playing that game again. But you go to Canada and Yaska Diaspora, they're as pleased to be Scottish in connection because of one thing, they brought education.
yeah.
Education is the key to every economy succeeding. But now Scotland is a basket case. It's a basket case. We haven't got, Gordon, if I look around me, it's like Victorian times. The railways are so old and decrepit. I've been to Spain and took trains in Germany, bullet trains all over the place. And we've got a thing that trundles into the station, stinking.
You got a smoky old diesel train.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and
absolute
the heaters
rubbish.
are either stuck full on in the summer or they don't work in the winter.
Exactly. Um, but anyway, so that's most of the correspondence. The thing we were talking about today is where we're going to be this time next year. And I was looking at Alf Bair's book, Doon Hodden, to get some kind of picture about what he's forecast. Remember, this book was written in 2020, and how
Yes.
he's got things spectacularly right is
Yeah.
amazing because he's looked at patterns of other countries on their road to independence or liberation, as they kind of call it.
Mhm.
And one of the things that stands out is decolonization equals liberation, your independence. Once you're decolonized, it's there, you're home and hosed. Once you find out and the world knows that this is your position, you're
Yeah.
away. He says self-determination is a cardinal principle in modern international law and is recognized as an international legal right in the UN Charter. Gordon, my question is, we had two chances. I would argue two chances. 2015, when we were taken out of the European Union, we should have started the UN negotiations right there and then. You've got political people who are earning 90 odd grand a year. What are they
Yeah.
doing? Why couldn't they work this out for themselves? And they've got SPADs, they've got researchers, they've got everybody at their disposal. Didn't do it. Okay, they didn't do it, they missed the boat. Here's another one. They went to the Supreme Court to ask if they could hold a referendum, and they were told, get lost. At that point, that critical point, start negotiations with the UN, you're a colony. It tells you. It's written in their charter. Gordon, we're still bloody waiting for the SNP to endorse what Alf Bair's been saying for the last 5 years, and they're nowhere.
It's interesting that you pinpointed those two periods of time. The one where Nicola Sturgeon had for months before it happened said that if we are dragged out of the EU against our will, we'll go to the people in a referendum on independence. That was what she said. That was what she promised.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened? Nothing. We get
Nothing.
dragged out of the European Union, and all we hear is more whining about being dragged out of the European Union. It never materialised, and I don't think it was ever going to happen. I think it
No.
was a threat. I think it was a bit of political posturing.
Can
Uh,
I add a bit more into that, Gordon? Because you're
yeah,
absolutely right. And I'm just going to read this out from Alf Bair's book. As a matter of law, a referendum is not a required part of the process of becoming independent.
no, it's
He
not.
tells you. He tells you the law states it. It might be democratic, but it's not legal.
you can volunteer to do it. You can put it to the people if you want. But if you have elected officials in a majority government who favour independence and say that they will declare it, then they can, because you've elected them to do that. That's how most other colonies have decolonised themselves, by simply electing people who said they would do it and then did it. And that's basically what Alf's saying. You don't need a referendum to do that. You just need to have a majority of people vote for the officials who say they will. So if you say, I don't know, 70 MSPs, a slight majority in Holyrood, to say, yeah, we're going to declare independence, that is what should happen.
Yeah. But it is scary, because if we are to get, where will we be next year is a question. I suggest, Gordon, and I hate to say this, but we'll be just, here we are, waiting for things to happen again. Because we're going through this system. We're going through the voting for SNP, getting nothing back. And they've conned us again. We voted SNP 1 and 2, and we're sitting here waiting for them to come to us to give us a Section 30, to give us a referendum. Now, here's the interesting point about this, Gordon. Douglas Alexander in the House of Commons this week said, if you get a majority, we will look favourably at a referendum for you.
Oh, I heard that, yes. He stopped short
because it's not legal. That's their next move. It's to not give it.
No, he said to look favourably at it. Doesn't mean they're going to actually allow it.
Aye, but even if you did allow it,
these tantalising carrots that are dangled before you by political parties before elections.
But Gordon, see, even if he did allow it, and he says, yeah, the overwhelming, and he gives it, and he goes, oh, by the way, it's not legal. So it's just a wee template of where you are just now. We need a bigger one, and they'll put the increase of maybe 50, 60, 70, 80, 99% of people that can vote. You must get all of them. And they'll change the rules, because all the laws are made in Westminster. Remember 1979, the 40% rule?
Yeah.
They changed it so we couldn't get an assembly.
It's like playing a game of football where the opposition's goalposts are on wheels.
Exactly. I mean, we're laughing at this, Gordon, but the SNP should be looking at this. And here's my take on where we'll be next year. If we're going to go through the mill and go through all this rigmarole and get nothing, and you'll get all the people on Twitter saying, oh, but we need one more chance, we're nearly done it, and all the rest of it. Alf Baird's saying to you cannot get your independence through political parties. It has to be done by the people. And I'll put this to you, Gordon. I think we've said this before. If the SNP stumble and fail because all the has-beens, the Alison Thulises are coming back, Kirsten Oswald's wanting back, Alan Smith, all these people who have failed Scotland are wanting back on the gravy train. They've done nothing for Scotland, and they're wanting to get back in. I think they'll fail. And when that happens, you will not get your majority, and you will get a unionist and devolutionists in the parliament. Yeah. And that will not help us. You need to take the bull by the horns and get meetings all over your constituency. Forget political parties. And Alf Baird states this, Gordon. He says other things are popping up or will pop up. This is 2020, he's writing this. He says other things should pop up, other parties will arrive. They will be the ones to carry the message, because they're the ones that have not been tarnished with the colonial masters.
No, do you know what's interesting, that you mentioned the fact that they're all getting 90,000 a year and all this kind of stuff. Well, this is essentially what British colonial technique has been for centuries. You buy off the elite in the country that you've colonized by offering them very tasty and very seemingly powerful positions within the local government of that colonized state. You give them enormous salaries, to tempt them in. So you're basically buying that political elite so that it will acquiesce to whatever the colonizer wants. And this is exactly what the SNP has become now. It never used to be that, but now it is. And that's why you're going to see these same faces again, because they're the same people who were bought off the last two times that they did this. And that will carry on unless we do something about it and stop electing them. Because if we stop electing them and voting for them, they will fail and other parties will have to arise. And I think you're right. I think this is what Alf is predicting. There's only so much of this nonsense people will take before they finally say, right, I've had enough of this. If next year's May elections are a failure in terms of gaining any further advancement towards decolonisation, I don't think people are going to hang around and wait for the SNP to do something. They're going
I
to
th- no, but I think, Gordon, I think there could be a way out. I think if the SNP, even at this stage, managed to change the leadership, even at this point, because what the SNP have got to do, and they never done at their conference because it was a short and small conference, and it was all yes people there. But if you're in the SNP and get off your arse off Twitter and out your front room and saying the SNP are brilliant and do something about it,
yeah,
you cannot get independence with John Swinney and that cabal. You have got to change the leadership. If the leadership changes, you've got a half chance of a new direction.
yeah,
You have got you can reappraise. If me or you were the leader of the Scottish National Party, Gordon, I'd be busting a gut to work with Commonweal, Sarah Salyers, Salvo, Liberation, Alf Baird, come into my office. I want to speak to you. Can you do a speech for me, Norrie Hunter, the FM of Scotland? I want to get this message out. You do everything you can. You don't shilly-shally saying, oh, I've got a plan. You know, I've got a plan.
yeah.
Swinney, get out, get lost, and move across till it's somebody of talent and backbone in. Get back to your Sun Life job with insurance. That you were never meant to be a politician. You're rubbish. You're garbage at it. Get out. Seriously.
Yeah.
And if we have that changed and we get somebody powerful, somebody with determination, Gordon, things could get back on track.
Well, there's another interesting thing that might happen with the SNP in the next year or so. And it's just an idea, but imagine this: where does the SNP get most of its funding from? From its membership, right? Now, if all of those members were unhappy, and remember, these are the branch members, members of the SNP who want independence desperately and are supporting the party because of that. All of those branches, if they all said, nah, we've all had enough of this, we're going to keep our branch together, but we're now going to leave the party, and you're not going to get any more of our money. His party would collapse because it would not have the funding it needs to keep on going, and a new party would emerge out of the ashes of that, because it's actually the people who are members of parties at branch level who are really the ones who are prepared to do the most work, because they will shut doors, they will hand out leaflets, they'll hold public meetings, and it's those people have the expertise to do it. And if you're right, Nori, I really wish this were true, and the SNP has a change of leadership that could bring that kind of energy back to the SNP from the branches, then there's a chance it might happen. But it can't happen with Swinney. He's been purchased by the United Kingdom. His allegiance has been bought, and so many others of the SNP leadership are the same. They've been bought by the UK with these massive salaries, these sinecures. They're safe jobs, but they don't really need to do very much. They just have to go along to get along. And that's not what you want if you're trying to liberate your country.
No. And Gordon, you only get so many chances at this. The trust is a valuable commodity in politics. You've either got it or you haven't. Now,
Yep.
I bet you, me and you both have been in the SNP and fought and canvassed and pushed doorbells and put the message across. I've done it. I've been in the SNP.
And
You have as
voted
well. Yeah,
repeatedly for years. Yes.
yeah. So when you're talking about us dividing the independence vote, always remember this, that most of the parties, the other independence parties, most of the people in there were once part of the SNP. What do you not get about that? Why do you think people left in their droves? Because there was no trust left in what they were doing. The GRR debate, the merger with the Greens, when it was obvious it was a disaster waiting to happen, and nothing on independence. And then we're looking to sources outside politics, and we're thinking, wait a minute, that's a better way to go.
Well, this is the thing that I knew when the SNP started turning inwards and started talking about the Gender Recognition Reform Act. And I'm thinking, gender recognition has already been reformed. You know, the protections that were there were absolutely fine. There was no need to actually review them and change them. And then all the other things that they were doing on the side, like, for example, chopping rail fares. Now, that's a vote buying scam because all that will happen is the fares will go up slightly across the board to accommodate that slight cut. So there's no such thing as a bargain, not anywhere, not in commerce, not in politics. These are all vote buying techniques. But when the SNP started doing that, I thought, right, I was right to stop supporting them because they're now starting to do what Alf Baird was predicting they would do, which is basically navel gazing and not doing anything for the cause they are in existence to right? We need.
I've got his book here. Gordon, you could have been quoting from Alf Baird's book because he says this provides another reason for a majority of Scotland's MPs simply withdraw Scotland from the UK Union, as should be their legal right to do so. There seems little point in Scotland always voting for self-governing nationalist majorities if Scotland is never allowed to govern itself.
Yeah, exactly. And Alf has boiled it down to its essence, which is we have the right to leave. We've always had the right to leave. We've just been led to believe that we have to ask permission from our neighbour first, and we don't.
Yeah.
No nation needs to do that. And if you look at the way the United Kingdom talks about the various component parts of the UK, you'll notice that when it suits them, it's a country, the whole place.
Yeah.
It's sport. We have the home nations. Now, Northern Ireland isn't even a bloody nation. Wales is a nation and a principality. Scotland is a nation, and England is a nation. So if they can accept that there are at least 3 nations in a group, then each nation has the right to leave that group anytime they want.
But the thing, Gordon, is when every time Scotland plays in the dark blue, we're relegated to BBC iPlayer, BBC Two. Lately, it's been on the news. But see, with rugby coming up, I'm getting nothing but the Red Roses of England, the rugby team, the Lionesses playing on STV. I couldn't give a damn about these people playing their sport. I'm away to see Scotland at the weekend playing Ireland at Shinty Hurling. And I'm going over to Buck Park to watch Scotland play, and there'll be a massive audience over there. My next door neighbour's playing for Scotland, by the way. That's what interests me, Scottish culture, because that's part of who I am, part of who you are. And if they control that, Gordon, if they control our culture, they control us.
By the way, just a little thing. I know it's not that important, but the Lionesses, they're not. They're leopardesses because England.
I know.
England's official animals for hundreds of years.
I know.
Right? Scotland was the only nation in the whole of these islands that had a lion rampant as its royal banner. England never had it. And when they saw that, Edward I was furious, and he converted it from 3 leopards to 3 lions. So now we've got lions as well, maybe more than you.
I know. It is. It's pathetic, isn't it?
Nicknames for our national teams. We are Scotland. We don't have to be called anything. We don't have to be called lions.
We're called unicorns. Our national anthem's a mythical creature. You know, we don't care. It doesn't bother us.
I mean, our national anthem talks about a flower, the flower of Scotland.
Yeah,
that's
an
interesting change in tone. A peaceful sort of name for the country, not a lion. It's not something that's going to kill you. A flower.
The English rugby team, the women's rugby team, are called the Red Roses. And we've got a white thistle on the SRU Scotland badge. I've never seen a white thistle in my life,
They
but it
don't
doesn't
exist.
matter. Do you know? And 5 or 10 years ago, somebody was saying, you know what you should have on the Scotland rugby jersey? The crossbill. It's a bird that's only found in Scotland. The Scottish crossbill. Put it on. It's us. It's ours. It identifies us.
Yeah.
It's too nationalistic. It's too it's not corporate enough with a white badge, you know.
Yeah.
Jeez.
No.
Anyway, at this point, Gordon, this is from Alf Baird. I thought this would be important. The UK union arrangement only exists so long as a majority of Scottish representatives agree to participate in it. Now,
Yeah.
Alf's talking about the Scottish Parliament in this because that's a Westminster construct.
Yep.
And they give it their consent to its continuance. Here's what he's saying about the people. If you take the message to the people and the people run with it, you can't snipe them. You can't shoot them down. You can't accuse the SNP of this not doing the day job. You can't accuse SNP are a small target, a big target you can put your sights on. When it's the people, that's a different matter. You don't know what their next move's going to be, and that frightens them. You could pop up at any meeting or any demonstration anywhere for independence and scare the bejesus just by your voice and your actions.
Yes.
And that's why we must, and that's what Alf's saying. Get out of that parliament, get your representatives out of there and on the streets. And maybe, Gordon, that when we see the demise of the SNP, people will then wake up. I cannot rely on just voting anymore. I cannot rely, because that's what we've done since SNP have been in power. You've justified your laziness by voting for the SNP. You've done nothing.
It's quite sad, Nori, but actually you're right. I mean, unless the SNP dies next year or in the next few years, but unless it actually fails and people think, God, the SNP's collapsed and they've lost their parliament, they've not got a majority, they're now in opposition again. This is a catastrophe. What are we going to do? It takes that kind of shock, that kind of psychological shock to shake people out of this fantasy that they have that everything's going to be all right if we just wait another few years with John Swinney. Waiting is not taking action. It's not prudence. It's cowardice. It's just going along to get along because you've been paid a lot of money to stay quiet about it. And that is essentially what the salaries of MSPs are for. It's to stop them speaking out about taking back control of the parliament. As you say, and as Alf says, until those elected officials reject Westminster completely and repudiate it and say, this is our parliament, we're taking back all our powers, and we are going to leave the union because we've been elected on the promise to do that. That's when things change. And that parliament building is always, to me, represented an imposition by the Labour Party, which was intended to prevent independence from ever happening. It wasn't designed to give us control. It was designed to show that they were in control and that we couldn't escape. It's a fancy, expensive building, perhaps architecturally interesting. Personally, I think it's pretty ugly. It's much bigger and more expensive than it should have been. But that's the British way.
It's the British way.
They build a lovely parliament in Stirlingshire, right in central Scotland, that everybody could get to. Why does it have to be Edinburgh?
Yeah, the schoolhouse, remember, in Edinburgh was too much of a shibboleth, too much of a token. You could see it. They put it down in the brewery, the old brewery in Holyrood. And they got a devolved country, Catalonia, one of their guys to build it, to make the connections, you know what I mean? But here's the thing, Gordon, about the UN. The UN describes colonisation. If we get back to why, if Swinney or somebody replaces Swinney and gets involved with this decolonisation process, why it could be a really big, huge shove towards independence. Because colonisation means independence. That once you're decolonised, you're independence. The world sees this, right?
Yes.
And the UN describes colonisation as a scourge on its people. And here's the other thing that Alf puts out, and I thought this was really interesting. If we had a real union of equals, right? Because that's what they say, it's a voluntary union. Surely that would involve its members having a veto over decisions it may not agree to.
Yes.
We don't have a veto on anything.
No.
It's take it or leave it. No, it's take it and put up with it.
Yeah. Because if you look at the European Union, as I recall, they have to pretty much have a majority of all the countries saying yes to some big, some great big piece of legislation that involves all of the nations in that group. They have to all agree before it's done. And if they don't agree, then they have to keep amending that legislation until all agree. And that's happened many times in Europe. And Ireland at one point, I think during the Schengen agreement, that was where they agreed to have open borders within Europe. The Irish rejected it 3 times in a referendum because it wasn't right for them. And eventually the European Union had to adjust it until it satisfied the Irish Republic. And then everybody voted for it. And that's what a union should be.
Yeah, it's coming to that compromise. We'll take so many, but not enough. 3 key elements of colonisation. This is really important because it gets back to the houses and what's happening around us. 1, full or partial political control. So if you've only got a wee bit of control, or they've got full control over you, you're colonised, and that's what happens. Economic exploitation. We're seeing. We've seen this on a daily basis. All my life, I've seen Scotland being exploited for its oil, for its natural resources, for its people. That's happening. That's a second factor. Now, this is what the UN demand you present to them before they'll touch you.
Yeah.
Third, this is a big one, Gordon, and we've got to be really careful about this. Occupation by settlers. Now, what does that mean? Well, you're getting your biggest neighbour coming up in their droves to stay here. I've seen things on social media. Oh, I fancy going to Scotland. It's so much better up there, dilly-dilly-da. And people are going, aye, the kettle's on and all the rest of it. Stop doing that. Because what they're doing is watering down your culture even further than it's been watered down. And the thing about getting the vote at the next referendum is that this is what, I don't know if this will run, and I might be paraphrasing him just a wee bit left-wing here, but he's saying that if you can speak Scots, you can get the vote for a referendum. If you can't, because a lot of English folk can't say loch, they can't say loch like we can.
No.
What do you know about Scottish culture, language? If you've arrived here 5 minutes ago, or you're a student, you don't get a vote. Well, if you don't get a vote, it's people that stay and live here.
You know what, Norrie? The English government insists that anybody who migrates into England from outside has to go through this this test where they have to learn about British culture and they have to learn about British history and they have to answer all these questions before they're allowed citizenship. We don't have that. Why not?
Gordon, all over the world, like Luxembourg demanded that the 10% that moved in didn't get a vote when they were moving to make one of their laws. In Belgium, they've done the same. In other countries around the world, they've done the exact same. I mean, you can't take part in this.
You might have settlers come in, but they have children, right? And those children grow up as Scots, and they are more inculcated into the Scottish culture than their parents were. And those generations are actually more in favour of independence than their parents because they don't come with the same baggage. They grew up in Scotland, they know it, they're used to it. They've accepted Scottishness and its culture in all its forms. They haven't brought baggage from England with them because they weren't there when their parents moved in. They actually were born here. And because I think when you're born in a place, you have that connection.
Well, they might or they might not. It depends how closely they are attached to their family. And if that's more attached to their family than the country, might not be. I'll tell you a story, Gordon. I'll tell you a story how this is worrying me. Here in Drumnadrochit, when England are playing football, there's people out in the streets wearing their England shirts. That's not my team. That's not. How dare you rub that in my face? If Scotland were playing England, that'd be okay, because But if you're wearing that England thing to annoy me and to take your country, you're not merging. You've still got the baggage. Now, if you've got the shirt, I would argue you've still got your politics. You're not going to change. You haven't changed by coming
Well,
up here.
I have this thing, Nori, when people do that sort of thing and they're saying England's great, England's better than all the other countries, and I say, well, why are you living here then? If your country's brilliant, pardon the French, why are you here?
I
It's
know.
because you don't like your country, you prefer ours. You know,
Yeah.
it's one thing is laughing at the other.
I'll tell you one thing, Gordon. I absolutely rejoice in there's a black they call themselves the Black Climbers. They go up Monroe's in a group of 20
Yeah,
Afro Scots, you could call them. I don't know what the modern terminology is, but they've not got the same colour of skin as we have. But see, when they
of
speak, it's broad Glasgow, pure
course.
magic.
That's
Uh,
what I mean. They are Scots. They grew up here.
aye, aye. They've
And
made
that's
an effort to find out about our hills, to find out about our culture, to speak our language. They're part of who we are. If you come up here and you still can't say loch, you still can't say loch, but you say loch, and you don't even bother trying to work things out,
no.
then sorry, get back. You have made no effort to integrate, and you're here as part of this campaign to overwhelm us. And when a vote comes, if these people get the vote, Gordon, we're going to lose another referendum.
I would concur because I think to a large extent that is what lost the last referendum. Is a lot of people who had migrated here who are not born here or were not born here, and they don't have the connection. They don't have the feeling. The zeitgeist isn't there for them. They are still English. They still see themselves that way,
Yeah,
or see themselves as British because that's what they've been taught when they grew up. You know, so we don't have that here. I don't think I've ever felt British in my life.
me
As
neither.
a child, I was always Scottish, and I've always felt that way.
Me too.
Identity and that connection does change the way you feel about your country.
But Gordon, we are not alone. I bet you there's more people than not in Scotland find themselves like us. We're Scottish, not British, but we're never taught that in our schools, and on media, in universities, in libraries. All these institutions tell you, even when you scroll down, UK, you've got to select that one.
Yeah.
Where's Scotland and all that? Senegal and Saudi Arabia. I want to be in there. I
Well,
want to be recognised.
the biggest irony of all of this, Nori, is you and I are talking English here.
I know.
Because we don't know anything else, because we weren't allowed to be taught Scots or even to speak it. It was considered slang, it was considered poor language, bad English, basically. And so it was demonized as something bad. And because of that, we felt ashamed if we talked that way. You know,
This
we
is
were
the
taught
ethnic.
to be
This is
shame.
the ethnic influence.
Aye.
This is what we're up against, Gordon. It is a scandal that we're not speaking in Gaelic or the Scots or whatever we would
Yeah,
have been speaking.
the
It's a
dialect.
I hate it. I hate. Sometimes it's shite being Scottish. You know, sometimes it really is. When you think back to that and how we're conversing,
Yeah.
garbage.
Do you
But Gordon,
remember?
I'm going to say this. I'm going to give a plug for Liberate Scotland. There's a fundraiser coming up next week, and I like the cut of their jib because they're saying independence, nothing less. They're coming together as a group, what for independence, and they say they'll not stop till they get it. That's who I want in the Parliament, not devolutionists or unionists. I want these people, and if you don't know anything about Liberate Scotland, Google them. They've got a web page up and running. They're good guys and they've got their interests at heart. They're like me and you, Gordon, exactly that. Ex-SNP, wanting a new direction, wanting a new challenge. And by the way, they're all for colonisation, decolonisation, by the way.
Yeah, I
They're
think
all for that.
decolonisation has now entered the conversation. It's become an accepted thing to talk about.
Yeah,
In the past, you know, 3 or 4 years ago, saying that we were a colony, people go, "Oh no, no, we're not a colony. No,
I
no, no,
know.
we're part of a union, and we need to have a referendum before we leave it and all that." No, we're not. I mean, the facts have been concealed from us for
Yeah.
300-something years deliberately, and we've been forced to learn a foreign language because our neighbours say so. That's what we've got to do, and so we've ended up in this situation we're in now, where we are all speaking English because of an invasion, basically a settler takeover, and people didn't even realise that they've been
I know.
colonized. They are speaking a language which isn't native to them
Yeah.
because they've been brought up in it. And
That's
this
right.
is what we're talking about, this dilution of the culture of the country that's been subsumed, being just eradicated, not taught. Nobody's allowed to know about the history. It never happened. It's all this now, and you must accept it. And this is what, you know, any empire does to its colonized.
Yes. Yes.
It obliterates their culture and imposes its own. And
Gordon,
we need,
we're running out of time. Can I ask you, where will Scotland be this time next year, in your opinion?
I think it's going to be in shock because I believe that the SNP is going to lose its majority next year and it's going to lose government in Scotland because people have not just lost faith in it, the party has gone away and left them. It's doing other things. It's not doing what they thought it was going to do when they joined it, and they're just going to leave it. And they're going to
Can we
be,
recover from that shock?
yeah, I think we're going to be in shock. The SNP is going to lose its majority in Holyrood and become a party of opposition. And then the slide will start.
Can
That
we
would,
recover? Can we recover from that shock?
God, yes, of course we can. But that death has to happen before a new
Yeah,
birth can occur. And that's just politics. And that's
it
history.
is.
It goes. That's what Alpha's been saying all these years in his book. It follows
Exactly that.
a pattern. Every country that's been colonized goes through these birth pangs before it gets out. And we're doing the same thing.
That's right.
So that's what I would close on. I'm hopeful, but I think this time next year, Scotland will be in shock
Yeah, I
at
think
the
so.
SNP government because the SNP government is losing Scotland.
It has. It's lost. Gordon, we've looked at the history. They couldn't win by-elections when the Orange Order were against them. They couldn't win their home territories where Winnie Ewing was so successful. They have lost a load of seats since the 57 because of inactivity. They're now down to a rump of 9. Are you telling me that these are a good party to go for? And the guy that's leading it has got a plan, but he's not telling us.
No, I don't believe a word of that.
Me neither.
Sorry.
But Gordon, it's what's it? Share.
Like, share, and subscribe.
You
And
got, you got it.
I
forgot there.
dropped my PayPal link in the description under this today as well because my PayPal's run away down, and it's always nice to get a few wee donations in. So if anybody out there's got a few spare quid, it helps.
Please
Anyway,
help
that's
us.
Norrie, I think.
Yep. Well, that's us, Gordon, because it's an hour up. I've really enjoyed that. Got a lot off my chest, Gordon. I hope other people enjoyed it too. Share like mad, folks, because as we said last week, you never know who's going to pick up your share and watch this and take some kind of action. Even if it's good or bad comment, put it below. We'll read out the best of them and keep in touch because that's what we have to do. We have to speak to each other. And if you think me and Gordon are wrong about what's happening next year, put it in the comments. Yeah. But Gordon, I've got to dash. I've got a lot of things to do today. But catch up next week.
All right, Norrie, always a pleasure. And thanks, everybody, for watching the show to the end. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.
Bye for now.
Bye, right. Okay.